It's a chunky fish. Got that one on the drop. They could be top water, they could be in close to the rocks. Hey folks, Captain Mike here from Etiquette. Today I'm in Vineyard Sound. This is my first trip of the year. It's mid-May and I'm on a little bit of an adventure. I'm running down the Elizabeth Islands, basically looking for life, looking for topwater action. It's that time of year. We've got herring, we've got squid, we've got silversides, and then obviously sand eels are always a consideration any time of the year here on Cape Cod. But long story short, we're on a recon pattern to find fish, and we've got the whole crate with us today, so we're ready for whatever we find. And coming up here midway down the Elizabeth Islands near Quick's Hole and see some birds. It looks pretty juicy. Let's get at it. So we're at sort of the tail end of the slack tide period. So there's a little bit of a rip that forms here, and I know from experience that that's a great topwater situation, and I see a lot of gulls sitting on the water. So, I'm gonna break down my environmental factors here. I know there's not a lot of tide. I know it's coming. So my initial strategies are gonna be focused on either scattered fish or looking for targets on the fish finder. And, so I see the gulls. I'm observing. My observational factors, in terminology we use with Etiquette, is I'm seeing very large birds, and that's gonna tell me that's probably bigger bait. So it's either squid or herring, or this time of year it could even be mackerel feeding on sand eels. We don't know, but we're ready. So when we get up, we're gonna figure out what the structure is, and then we're gonna dial in the approach. So we're here, the rip's starting to form, and I'm hearing the radio chatter. It hasn't happened yet. Here they're just saying the same thing. And I've noticed a lot of folks here have switched over to a jig bite. A little bit of chatter there on the bottom. So the structure here officially is going to be a shoal, and eventually there'll be a rip here. But there's enough tide right now, enough current, and the wind in the same direction where we'll be able to make drifts over the structure. So I'm going to opt for a jigging game. I've established that there's gulls here, so I'm going to assume it's bigger bait, either squid or herring, and I'm gonna vertical jig. And the lure I'm gonna go with is the Hogy Protail Paddle in the 4 and 5 ounce range. We're in 58 feet of water. So the beauty of these 4 and 5 ounce Protails is they're gonna get down and provide an excellent vertical jigging game. A lot of folks don't realize that swim baits make good vertical jigging baits, especially the paddletails, but they're perfect herring imitations. But the beauty of that is if fishing with the swim baits, in today's case, the Hogy Protail Paddle, is if fish do come up and start breaking, we're ready to run an audible and cast to them. So we're jigging, but ready to cast, one rod, one lure. So let's talk about the techniques we're using today. Jigging with the Hogy Protail Paddle, which would apply to any paddle tail swim bait. So I'm gonna send this down. This is the 4 ounce version, and I have a medium heavy outfit, which is plenty strong to vertical jig with this bait. I don't know that I would cast with this all day long, but it's plenty strong. So there's almost no wrong way to fish a paddle tail swim bait vertical jigging, other than the fact today they wanted a certain way. They wanted what I would call sort of a slow pitch style jig. The fish have been hanging on the bottom, so I'm sending it down, lifting the tip. I can feel the paddle thump as it goes up, and I can feel the paddle thump as it goes down. Now I've got a 4 ounce jig, 4 ounce Protail paddle, plenty to hold bottom here. There's a fair amount of current, but we're at 38 feet of water. It's no problem. And I'm just thumping that bait along. All the fish have been coming on the drop, and a hit on the drop is very subtle, if not the opposite of a hit. All of a sudden the line just feels light, like your lure cut off. And that's, if you picture a fish hitting it from below, swimming upward with it, And so you'll feel like no weight. You won't even feel the weight of the swim bait. And so that's the technique for today. Just a slow jig, letting that bait swim. So it's like a herring sort of milling up and down around the bottom. Got that one on the drop. There we go. On the board, that's a decent fish. So I missed those fish. They were hitting on the drop, and I wasn't listening to my own advice, and I started paying attention to the drop. And here we are. This is a decent fish, it feels like. Take a minute to make sure I'm not drifting on anybody. There we go. Protail doing its job. Just thumping along. There we go. A nice slot fish here. Right in the corner, barely hooked. Nice chunky springtime striped bass. This is a slot fish, I'm sure. I'm a sea bass guy, not a striper guy. Ideally, I like to keep him in the water. I took that one out for the camera. I can tell this guy's healthy, ready to go. He's clamped on my thumb and off it goes. So there's a little bit of a shoal here. I don't really see a name on the chart here, but I think locally it's known as the banana shoal. But just I've fished here my whole life. I know that there's liable to be fish up and down the Elizabeth Islands, and they could be topwater, they could be in close to the rocks. So we're approaching the scene. There's a handful of boats here already. So I've backed off my speed. So I'm just gonna idle in. I don't wanna come in like that guy with a big wake and hot. So for etiquette reasons, I backed off and I'm just sort of tiptoeing to the fleet. They beat me here. They found the fish before me, which is great. So I'm gonna respect that and just come in cool. I got that one, bastard. Yeah, some shoalers on that fish. There we go. That's a good fish. Again, they want that hit on the drop. Keeping my tip clear from the boat here. Chunky fish. It's a chunky fish. So let's get this girl back in the water and let her digest all the herring she's been eating. Pop the hook. Get it back. I can feel the herring inside this fish's belly. It's insane. There she goes. So today a lot of folks I've been looking around are using these larger flutter pitch style jigs. Well, a very effective technique. It's also effective to use a large paddle tail swim bait. And what I like about a swim bait with a single hook is it has the single hook. That fish came in a little bit on the chin. If that was a treble hook, that would have been a much bigger operation to dehook the fish. Judging by the company, I may not be catching more fish, but I'm certainly catching the same amount with my paddle tail swim bait that looks just like a herring, perfect imitation, and having a great little session. And if the fish come up, I'm ready to cast. So I always like to talk about fish care on each trip I have. So today we were using the Hogy Protail Paddle. Obviously it's just got one single hook, a very clean, easily releasable way to catch fish. Now, all of our fish came in quickly, were released quickly, healthily. I did see one larger boat catch a very large fish, and despite being, short windows, difficult repositioning, that boat took the time to revive that fish by swimming it alongside the boat, something I always do. Now, the one thing I always mention when you're swimming a fish alongside a boat to revive it is it often takes longer than you think it should. And what I noticed about this boat is that captain and the angler or mate or whomever was reviving that fish took an ample amount of time to revive that fish. It was a big boat, high gunnels. He really put the effort in. And that was very encouraging for me to see as an angler that, pushing 50 years old at this point, I'm looking at my kids with their future of striped bass. Everything we can do from best practices to using just one hook, preferably a single hook, and best practices for releasing a tired fish. That's how we're gonna have striped bass for generations to come. Got that guy. Yeah, now we got it. Code is cracked. Yeah, I'm gonna come around to the starboard side here. Dave coming around this way. So it's all about the drop. Another slot fish. The tide's picked up a little bit. These fish are getting a little more leverage in the current here. Another chunky fish. Hey folks, Captain Mike here from Salty Cape. Happy Memorial Day. If you're not fishing, you should be. Bass are chewing, feeding on herring out here in Vineyard Sound. We're gonna let this fish go, but you get a chance, get out here. Let's talk about the outfit. So today I was using the Hogy inshore medium heavy outfit. Now, I carry two outfits for inshore dedicated rods, an inshore medium and an inshore medium heavy. The medium is sort of lighter, casting jigs, unweighted soft baits, that sort of thing. The medium heavy is my big plug and my big swim bait rod, and also my vertical jigging rod if I'm vertical jigging jigs, say 3.5 ounces and up. Now, this rod is weighted for casting from 3/4 of an ounce to 2 ounces, but we're not casting today, we're vertical jigging. Now, the thing about vertical jigging is you can upsize the weight you can use to fish with a rod. So today we're using a 4-ounce Hogy Protail Paddle. We easily could have upsized to the 6-ounce size, but where the strike zone was, we were in 38, 40 feet of water, so 4 ounces was just fine. You know, so this is just a good outfit. So if you hook a big fish, a big toad, you have the brawn to fish with it. The reason why I like this rod so much is it has a moderate fast action. A lot of the rods today have trended to a very fast action, and that means that the bend profile errs in the tip of the rod as opposed to a more, a slow rod would have a parabolic bend. This is a moderate fast, so it has a little bit of tip flex, but its secondary bend profile is a more moderate action. Why am I mentioning all this now? When you're vertical jigging, you want to have a soft, cushiony rod, because when they hit, you want the whole rod to flex and absorb that impact. And so that's why I like a moderate fast action rod. I can both cast with it and jig with it. And that allows me to not carry a dedicated jigging rod. That's going to minimize outfits on the boat, clutter, and speed up my decision making. Okay, let's take a little deep dive on the Hogy Protail Paddle. Now, for starters, it's a swim bait, a paddletail swim bait. Now, these are unique in the sense that, well, they come in a number of sizes, but this is the 6.5-inch Protail, and this is the perfect herring size imitation. You can see it's the length of my hand. Just a good overall profile. I wish we had one spit up on the deck for the side-by-side, but we don't, so here we are. And this is a great lure. It's made with very durable plastic. Now, this bait lasted an entire session and is still ready to rock and roll for many more. Now, that's not to say a bluefish wouldn't tear this up a little bit, but in terms of soft plastic, this is the toughest one I know of. Now, there's some other features to this. Now, the 6.5-inch version, it's one fixed size, but they range in weight. So this will start at 2 ounces and go all the way up to 6 ounces. So you have one size profile, but the different weight allows you to deal with different environmental changes like wind and tide and current, how deep you need to get down. And so it really has to do with casting power and vertical depth. And that's why we make so many different sizes, and they're a little unusual that way. Now, it's a lifelike lure. You can see it has the oversized eyes. In clear water, that really matters. It gives it that lifelike profile. Now, anything in our swim bait platform is going to come standard with the VMC Barbarian jig hook. Now, there is no stronger jig hook in this class on the market, hands down. It's a great, great, great hook. Now, what I like about this lure, this is a 4-ounce Protail. We're vertical jigging. This hook is strong enough for a tuna, but yet it has a thin enough gauge where it's plenty fine for the striped bass. We were catching slot stripers. None of them were toads. This hook had no problem penetrating the fish, none at all. And you can see the power of this hook comes from that sickle-shaped bend in the hook. So when the fish is cradled, it's on this hinge point, and so that's going to create a very low leverage pull on the hook. And so A, that's going to make that hook exponentially stronger, but B, create a really solid hook set, and your ability to lose a fish is greatly reduced. Now you'll notice a pocket. We call this the battle pouch. Now, one thing we noticed with soft baits, being in the soft bait business for 20 years now, is baits tear when they slide on a jig head and when they bend around a hook. Now, that's why I tend to favor pre-rig swim baits over rig your own, is, with the bait sliding up and down a jig hook, say, if it was, again, on a rig your own, they get torn that way. I mean, you can repair them with super glue and that sort of thing, but, out in fast moving conditions, I don't want to mess with that. And then number two, baits tear around the hook. And so that's, again, back to why we had this battle pocket, is we've cut out that extra plastic. So when you're fighting a fish, this bait is flexing around the hook and there's no tear. Once the bait starts tearing, it's on the process to completely tearing, but this mitigates all the tearing. This is literally the same lure we use for an entire tide, and it's still ready to rock and roll. Now, a lot of people ask me how I store my Hogy Protail paddles, or any paddle tail swim bait for that matter. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go, obviously. For one, you can keep them in a hard plastic Plano box like I have here. Keep them in a roll-up bag like I have here, like I do with many of our other baits and jigs and that sort of thing. But what I personally like is to keep my Protail paddles in our swim bait wallets here. And as you can see, everything's neatly organized. Let's see if I can do this eloquently here. Starting this year at Hogy, we're offering the Hogy Protail paddles, particularly the ones with the paddle tails, in recyclable PET clamshells. And what is that? Now these are plastic packaging that's going to hold your bait securely, interface with a swim bait wallet, but what it's going to do is it's going to protect the tail of the soft bait. Now, we've put a lot of time and energy into shaping just the right taper, the right tail, so that it's going to have that natural action both at high speeds, at slow speeds, casting and jigging. And so to me, cramming a high-end swim bait like this one into a Plano box or wrapping it tight in a roll-up bag, it'll be fine, but the OCD in me gets triggered and I want a perfect tail action every time. And that's why I have this. And so it's nice is, the clear vinyl side of this, I can see the colors, I can see the sizes. All our Protail paddles have the weight on the chin. So I have a very easy system. I can see the weight, I can see the color, I can see the size, and it's easy to rock and roll in this nice little wallet. And so that just fits right in with my mesh crate system. In this case, I have my groundfish jigs and my plugs and all my other stuff. So it's very much part of my system and very easy, very intuitive, and very automatic. In my opinion, those tails are perfect, and that's important, whether it's for my OCD or for the action, doesn't matter. I fish more confidently, and that's how I'm gonna catch more fish. Well, that was a great session. Our objective was to find stripers. We found stripers. My only complaint today, if I were to have one, is it did get a little trafficky on the spot. It got very crowded. While there's still plenty of fish for everybody, my style as an angler is, I would call it an adventure mode. And, so I found fish, caught fish, used the Salty Cape system, great morning, but now it's sea bass time. So on the way home, I'm gonna pick up dinner. I always release all my striped bass and I eat the tasty fish, the sea bass. Great morning. Thanks for watching. I really hope to see you out there.